A couple of weeks ago, I received this in the mail, TTArtisan 11mm 2.8 fisheye. I'm a fan of fisheye lenses. I don't use ultra-wide lenses very often, but when I do, they're probably fisheyes. Ultra-wide lenses kind of, from my perspective, suck the artfulness out of a lens, and the distortion of a fisheye kind of puts the artfulness right back in. A super distortion corrected lens is useful when you want to do something super correct, I guess. I've always been a fan of incorrect. Really nice looking lens. And a relatively inexpensive lens. But the build quality is top notch. Way beyond what I was expecting. This is a heavy, solid, gorgeous hunk of glass and metal. What I didn't realize, though, is that while my 1DS Mark II has focus confirmation, the focus confirmation won't work with a lens like this. For that to work, it requires a lens with a chip that can communicate with the camera's autofocus system. But this was a few weeks ago for a different video, and I just shot some stuff anyway. Just eyeballing focus. And it worked out just fine. Everything came out pretty sharp. But I did feel that, if I want to be a little more precise about it, or shoot this lens wide open, probably better to pair it with something a little less ancient than the 1DS Mark II. So I went with the 5D Mark II, which is still pretty ancient, but modern enough to have live view, and the ability to zoom in to get your focus dialed in. Helpful. That was super helpful. This camera and this lens made for a great pairing, actually. Between the time I opened the box and this day, I had already spent a few weeks shooting quite a bit with this camera and this lens combo around the apartment and elsewhere. And thus, by the time I was making this video, I felt very familiar with it, very comfortable with it, with them together as a team. I love the pace of working with this lens. I love the feel of the focus ring and the aperture ring. Both feel weighty, sturdy but smooth, but also analog. I'm fresh off of shooting a bunch of rolls of film on my mom's old Olympus 35mm camera, which doesn't have autofocus either, nor do her old lenses, but I can't help but draw a comparison between that experience and this one. This is very comfortable. This is a similar vibe. I dig the nice, slow, film-like pace. I wouldn't use this or any other manual focus lens at a wedding. For portraits, I would. Shots of my family, stuff. Yes, I do all the time. And for just walking around photographing whatever I want, it's a pleasure to use. I might even prefer it. It does require two hands, of course, which, in my particular case, can be a problem, depending on how I'm capturing video, but of course today I planned accordingly, knowing that I would need both of my hands free, so it's fine. The photos are edited. I boosted the yellows and the greens a bit, brought the shadows up, added grain. Flat, boring, overcast light is definitely not what I was hoping for. Not much I can do about that. So getting a decent exposure balancing the dark land and bright sky is challenging, to say the least. So as soon as I got out here, I realized this would be a job for raw plus boosted shadows. And so that was my approach. I'm colorblind, so if the colors look screwed up, now you know why. The color holes in my face are unreliable. Anyway, it's hard to treat reality with a great deal of reverence when you're using a lens that bends trees like rubber bands. Anyway, unedited, the colors look bland and lifeless. Sorry. Love you, 5D Mark II, but you're clearly no match for the worst lighting conditions imaginable. If I could choose a superpower, it would be the power to alter lighting conditions at will. No, it wouldn't. What a waste. Still, though, that would be a cool power. The power to afford any camera I want would also be really nice. Or the power to make broccoli taste like pizza. Those are all really, really good powers. Strong choices. Anyway, I did what I could. pulled the shadows up, nudged the colors around until they felt less dead to me. Probably made it worse. Doesn't matter. It was just good to be outside, gray or not. I have Magic Lantern installed on this 5D Mark II. In my normal use over the past couple of weeks, I used focus peaking a bit, which Magic Lantern adds to the 5D Mark II. I'm glad it's an option, but I didn't love the implementation particularly, nor did I find it necessary. The zoom-in approach works really nicely, which is an ability the 5D Mark II has natively. However, via a Magic Lantern tweak, I have it set to zoom to 10x when I half press the shutter, which makes it a bit more convenient, fluid. There's no hesitation while I press some other button to zoom in more, then zoom out, and that's the native behavior of the zoom button. Instead, I half press the shutter to achieve focus as I normally would. It just so happens the method of doing so involves a quick zoom in and the turning of a dial. Also via a Magic Lantern tweak. I have it set to auto-expose the image with a half press, temporarily, just to further assist with focusing. So, because I tend to underexpose the land, this is generally, though not always, going to brighten up whatever I'm focusing on, make it easier to see details, and thus easier to focus on those details. But then when I fully press the shutter, it, of course, unzooms, and it returns to manual exposure. Those are some really nice tweaks. It makes this all feel very cohesive, seamless. Like that's just how this camera and this lens are meant to work together. Just the same as shooting my mom's Olympus with its particular method of manual focus, which is split prism plus a micro prism collar. In this case, it's zoom in and brighten. That's this camera's method of achieving manual focus. Magic Lantern, by the way, is a third-party, warranty-breaking, possibly camera-breaking add-on that unlocks or adds new features to older Canon DSLRs. Granted, no 5D Mark II is under warranty anymore. I've installed and uninstalled Magic Lantern probably 50 times over the years. Never run into a problem, so it is relatively safe, but it's still a firmware hack. It's not completely safe. There's always some risk. But it doesn't replace Canon's firmware. It runs off the memory card alongside it, so that approach is nice and about as safe as you can possibly get for that sort of thing. So still kind of gloomy, overcast, but being free of the thick cover of trees, the light is at least a little better over here. And so I feel the images are better as well. There's some sporadic sunlight, which is nice. I just wish it weren't so sporadic. This lens has a holy shit 180-degree field of view. With that kind of field of view, you'd think it would be more distorted than it is. Exaggerated. Ridiculous, even. That was kind of my expectation going in. But it's not the case at all. It's a very reasonable, pleasing amount of distortion. Sometimes, depending on where you place the horizon or what you're photographing, you can't really even tell that it's distorted. There's actually kind of a restraint to it, to the lens, I mean. Or it just suits the landscape in a particular shot, or helps shape it into something more interesting in the case of some other particular shot. I mean, yes, it all depends on what you do with it, but I guess my point is it's not like a gimmick lens. Fisheye is not, in general, and this lens is not, specifically. It's a very beautiful lens. Very sharp. It's a great tool for making art, or seeing in a new way. A well-engineered tool at that. The quality of materials with which this lens is made are indeed very impressive, but I feel the optical quality is really the star. Much, much beyond what I expected for the price. Everyone who's ever used a cheap lens has some kind of familiarity with the look of images shot with a cheap lens, even if they're not familiar with the specific terminology describing it. But there's just none of that here. It's gorgeous, it looks high-end. but it's also a really affordable lens, which I guess just goes to illustrate how much you're spending on autofocus when buying a lens. Kinda shocking. And boy, is there a big advantage in terms of affordability, in terms of the ratio of price to quality. Bang for buck, as they say. A big advantage to ditching autofocus if you're in a position where you don't need it. Makes me rethink some stuff. But this is a cool lens. It's really legitimately a cool lens. It breaks composition open in a way that is hard to undo, actually, after you shoot with it for a while. A 35mm lens starts to feel claustrophobic. It rewires your sense of space. Suddenly every other lens feels like it's leaving something out of the frame, like you're being forced to crop reality. But it's not just about cramming more in the frame, it's the way the relationship between things shifts. Foreground pulls forward, background shrinks away. You stop framing scenes and you start folding them, squeezing and expanding them, bending and unbending. It's visual gravity, it can be visual chaos. It's really cool. But then sometimes it can be frustrating. It's great to have as a lens standing by in your bag. You can just pull it out when the right set of circumstances arise. Cool, but I'm using it as my one and only lens. And that's occasionally challenging and frustrating. But I love doing stuff like that. Not just for the sake of a video. It's such a great exercise. Grab a lens that seems utterly wrong or alien to your typical routine and bring only that lens with you. Maybe you'll get something special. Maybe you won't. Maybe it'll help you see stuff in a new way. Maybe it'll just make you appreciate what you already have. Who knows what it will do for you? The point is, it'll do something, and something is better than the alternative. If you've ever felt stuck, this is going to unstick you real fast. But you have to commit. Not like go out there and take 2 shots and give up. But if that describes you, you're not stuck. There's something else going on. Be it laziness, which is fine, by the way. I'm not critical of laziness. Or maybe you just don't really like photography that much. Both of those things are fine. Maybe you're just having a shit day or a shit week. So just give it a little time. Try again. But I received this lens for free. I suppose that could cause a person to be dishonest or biased or less likely to say negative things. Fair. That's not the case here. But fair enough. My channel is small, but you'd be surprised how many offers I get to review stuff. Receive stuff for free. Paid reviews too, or ads, sponsored videos, whatever the fuck. I get those too. But out of maybe, I don't know, 75 offers, I've accepted maybe 6 or 7 of them, and usually I give them a whole rundown of what I will and won't do. I've turned down all the paid offers I've ever received, because in part that makes me a tad uncomfortable. Except for once I didn't, because I just really wanted to check out the product, pay or no pay, and pay was part of the deal, but that's tough. I'm a poor. Money is very useful, as you might have heard. It's not like I wrestle with the decision to be a horrible sellout or not. I figured that would start coming up eventually, and so how I handled it was not to handle it at the time. I made no rule about how I would handle it, so when it started coming up, I just took it on a case-by-case basis. No, I don't care about this product, so I'm not going to accept money to talk about it, because that would be a shitty thing to do. But more than that, I just physically can't do it. I can't pretend to care about something I don't. I just literally cannot. It's not just that I do a bad job, although yes, that's also true. But I would end up in tears on the floor if I tried. It would just crush me. I wouldn't be able to move. That sort of thing is just not in my DNA. But it's good that I know that about myself, so I can avoid having to go through it. So pay or no pay, I only accept things I'm super interested in trying anyway. And even still, it's I don't know how to express this exactly. It's the free spirit in me. No, I hate that phrase. The creative person. It's the person who sucks at doing a conventional job. All the stuff I've agreed to make a video about sounded fun when I agreed, but never actually was fun. So, okay, I'm making a video about this thing, whatever it is. Just the fact that I have to do it, and while there's seldom an exact deadline, there's a rough time frame I have to do it in. That makes me miserable. That makes me hate it. But I keep falling for it, thinking, nah, this time it's going to be fun. But it never is. Freedom, or at least the illusion of freedom, is essential for my state of mind. Someone wants something from me, needs something from me, has some requirement of me. I've got to do this thing by this day. I can't get out of bed. I just want to scream, get your fingers out of my art. This is the one exception, and I mean that sincerely. I had decided whatever product I was offered next, it was just going to be a hard no, but then this one came up and I was really interested. Yeah, been there before. But I mean really, really interested this time. I already shoot fisheye. I like shooting fisheye. I have a whole history with fisheye that I've talked about before, so I won't again. Still though, this lens is a very different animal as compared to the fisheye lens I have. I thought it would be fun using this lens, so I made an exception. I thought it wouldn't feel like a burden this time, as the other ones had. It wouldn't come to feel like an oppressive obligation, keeping me from doing what felt right in the moment. It wouldn't get me down. It wouldn't make me want to quit. I thought, instead it will be fun, and for once, I was actually correct. I had fun shooting with this lens. Pure fun, only fun. No bad feelings. And it was over so quick. I figured I'd need to go out a bunch of times to gather material, but no, not really. Twice, and that was it. I did shoot with it a bunch on my own, where I wasn't capturing video. I'm doing a lot more of that lately. It's really important for my internal batteries that I do art that I don't share. It's hard to explain, but it's just very, very much the case. But I'd never tried a TTArtisan lens before, and I've been curious for a long time. Not even really sure if that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, I'm really impressed, and I'd be very curious to try some other focal lengths in the future. It comes in a variety of camera mounts between Canon RF and EF that would suit my cameras. Of course, it would be easier to focus on an RF camera, but EF is where my heart is at. And that's part of what makes it so enjoyable to me. But there's lots of non-Canon mounts as well. But I don't want to nail focus faster, really. I don't want the guesswork fully removed. I like the slow pace, the analog feel. That is apparently my thing. I didn't always know that about myself, but yeah, evidently. I like that sort of stuff. Evidently. All the companies I've agreed to work with have been lovely too, though. Surprisingly so. With one exception. I won't say who. This was several months back, not TTArtisan. They've been great. Actually, I've barely spoken to them. I'll reach back out and let them know that I've published this video, but otherwise I just said yes, I'd be very interested, and that was essentially it. Oh, and then I wrote them back because our fucking mailman delivered the package to the wrong mailbox. Didn't know that at first. I just knew that it showed as delivered, but it was nowhere to be found. Next day I caught the mailman. Sure enough, it was in somebody else's mailbox. Thanks, USPS. Anyway, that one company that I hated working with, I liked their product a lot, actually, so that was a weird dynamic. They wanted me to submit the video for approval before publishing. Nothing like that had been mentioned when I agreed, or I would not have agreed. Quite the opposite. I was very specific with how casual I was going to treat the topic, that it would not be the focus of the video, that I would show the product a little bit, weave in and out in a meandering sort of path. So then I said yes, and suddenly I'm dealing with an entirely different person, with an entirely different agenda or understanding. Not what I agreed to. Anyway, that sucked. I told them that I thought it was unethical for them to see and approve my video before it launched. All of a sudden, after I say yes, There was a specific launch date for the video that I had never agreed to. I'm showing it to them in advance. They're sending me bullet points of what I should cover in the video, what must appear in the description, and in what order. Fuck that, fuck them. Sure, I like their product, but I don't use it. It just gives me bad feelings. Such bullshit. Anyway, I turn down free products all the time. I turn down money too. And that's tough, but I feel like I have to protect my baby here. I sincerely enjoy doing this, but all this stuff will kill my joy, and I'll stop. So maybe I'll agree to this one payday, but the consequence of that will go well beyond that one incident. It'll kill my will to keep going, so that's why I don't agree to much. Yes, being a horrible sellout is a consideration, but weighing my integrity against the cost of round-the-clock care for sick parents that my wife and I have been paying for 2 years, I can actually begin to justify selling out quite easily in my mind. I care about them being okay more than I care about my own self-respect. But I'm prevented from going there anyway, because I know that one of these offers would be my last. It would just crush me and I'd stop doing this. Then there would be no more offers anyway. Money ruins everything, so I probably won't be doing much more of this. Not making an edict. I will always deal with stuff on a case-by-case basis, but very likely I'm going to get even more strict about this than I already have been. Because I'd rather just make no money and be happy than flipping that dynamic around. But TTArtisan made no rules, no suggestion about what I ought or ought not do. They didn't offer money. If they had, I wouldn't have accepted it. Or maybe I would have, if I'm being extremely honest, but I would have felt appropriately bad about it. They've been lovely. They've been lovely in the sense that I haven't heard a single word from them. I've had the lens for 3 or 4 weeks. We never even discussed when the video would come out or what it would be like, or what I would talk about. I appreciate that. It really means a lot. I have an affiliate link if you're interested. I just opened it for the first time. Looks like it takes you to the store itself, not directly to the lens. But click the menu at the top left, then lens, then full frame, and it's in there. And they have some really interesting other lenses in here. This is bad for me to look at. I just bought a new old camera a couple of weeks ago, and I already have to sell something else to cover that. I cannot buy any of these. But some cool stuff in here. Shooting this lens, this 11mm 2.8, I basically only ever alternated between f8 and f2.8 when I was shooting. With something close up to the camera, and maybe I wanted to either let it fall out of focus or be in focus and separated from the background, I shot 2.8. Duh. When nothing was within, say, a few feet of the camera, I used f8. And that was my strategy. I guess I come over to this area, this location, far too often. I was going to do it later on this week, again, with a different camera and lens, but the 1D that I just recently bought. But I guess I won't. I need to explore more. But I think this has become my happy place lately. I just like being here. So it draws me back. Anyway, I don't think it's a particularly bad thing to revisit the same spot a lot. But I do crave novelty. But that's not really what photography is about. That's just me getting bored easily, as I do. But of course you don't want to get complacent either. Sometimes you just need to move on. I've had this idea for a while. One of these days I'll actually get around to trying it, which is basically to just plunk myself down at some, not exactly random location, but just some unassuming, ordinary kind of spot, and just spend an hour observing and photographing every interesting detail I can find around me without moving. Sounds like that would be really relaxing and compositionally a fun challenge. Yeah, so I'll probably do that at some point. TTArtisan 11mm 2.8 fisheye. It's a great lens, and I mean that sincerely. But God, I can't wait to get out. and shoot with the 1D, the original 1D, 4.1 megapixel camera that I just bought last week. The restraint it took to do this first, I can't even describe. But off I go. I'll see you next week with the results.